Good day everyone, we are the Group 1 and our topic is all about principles of ship handling. Objective of this topic is to explain the principles of ship handling and the effects of deadweight, draft, trim, speed, and underkeel clearance on turning cycles and stopping distance.
Ship's handling and maneuvering is defined as the art or proper control of a ship while underway, especially in harbors, around docks and piers. It is one of the skills that any ship handler finds very satisfying when well accomplished. The most basic thing to be understood in ship handling is to know and anticipate how a ship behaves under all circumstances and what orders should be given in order to make the ship behave and move exactly the way you want it to. The difference between the ship's heading and the actual direction of movement of the ship should also be constantly attended to, as this is essentially important at slow speeds and where there are wind and current.
Deadweight is the difference between the displacement and the mass of empty vessel or lightweight at any given drop. It is a measure of ship's ability to carry various items such as cargo, stores, ballast water, provision, and crew, or etc. Second, displacement. The displacement or displacement tonnage of a ship is its weight. As the term indicates, it is measured indirectly using Archimedes' principle by first calculating the volume of water displaced by the ships, then converting the value into weight. Draft. The draft or draft of a ship's hull is the vertical distance between the waterline and the bottom of the hull or keel.
I'm Cadet Bugahod, and today we'll be discussing about trim, in which it is the difference between the draft of the fore and aft part of the ship. Now, the underkeel clearance is the depth of the water below the keel of the ship. Simply put, it is the space below the ship's keel and above the seabed, so as to prevent any and all form of grounding or accident.
Turning circle. From the word turning, it is when a vessel made to turn under a continuous hand to 360 degrees. It will follow a roughly circular track. Advance. It is the distance of a ship or vessel travels before it can actually change its course. Transfer. It is the horizontal or transverse distance traveled while a ship makes a 90-degree change in heading.
Tactical diameter and final diameter. Tactical diameter is the distance gained to either left or right of the original course, measured from the original course until 180 degrees change of heading. So, final diameter is the diameter of a circle traversed by a vessel after turning through 360 degrees and maintaining the same speed and rudder angle. Note that it is always less than tactical diameter.
Pivot point. A ship's pivot point is a point on the central line of the ship where the ship rotates with a turning during a course change. The vessel's turning moment acts about a definitive point of action which lies on its central line somewhat towards the fore end or aft end. This kinematic point of action is known as the pivot point of a vessel. Drift angle. An angle at any point on the turning circle between the intersection of the tangent at that point and the ship's keel line. The drift angle is the angle between the heading and the direction in which degree of gravity moves through the water, and must be confused with the force allowance necessary to make good draft over the ground when there is a current.
Longitudinal motion in ship handling refers to the forward and backward movement of the ship along its length, also known as surge or heave. In simple words, longitudinal waves are the type of wave motion in which the displacement of the medium is in the same direction to which the wave is moving. Next, lateral motion in ship handling refers to the sideways movement of the ship, also known as sway or crabbing. It's essential for maintaining position, maneuvering alongside docks or other vessels, and navigating in confined spaces. Ships move laterally when turning because the pivot point is not located at the ship's center. These forces include wind, waves, currents, tides, interactions between vessels, shallow water effect, and bank effects. And lastly, rotational or turning motion in ship handling refers to the rotation of the ship around its vertical axis, known as yaw. This motion is essential for changing direction, making turns, and aligning the ship with a desired heading or course. The motion of a rigid body which takes place in such a way that all of its particles move in circles about an axis with a common angular velocity, the rotation of a particle about a fixed point in space. Vessels also have other behaviors worth noting when her maneuvering equipment is in operation. Thrusters, on the other hand, move the vessel's end sideways. Thrusters, depending on its design, increases its effectiveness as the vessel slows down.
So now, let's proceed on the external and the internal factor forces that affect the ship. So the first one is the external factor forces. So when we say external factor forces, it is the forces that came from the outside. So here are some examples: a tide, wind gust, the sit and drift, depth of water, and also the proximity of the other vessel. So while for the internal factor forces, it comes from the inside of the vessel. So here are some examples. So the engine power, speed, the type of propeller, rudder movement, thrusters, anchors and mooring lines, and also tugboats. And that's it for the external and internal factors of the ship.
So now let's move on to the effects of external forces. First is the ship handling, involves effectively utilizing controlled forces to counteract or utilize external forces. Second is the wind and current are significant external forces impacting ship movement. Third is the wind blowing on one side of a ship can cause it to drift forwards the lee side. Next is the current acting on one side of a ship can result in diagonal movement despite the intended heading. Next is the allowances for set or current and leeway or wind are made to achieve the desired track. Next is the currents have a greater impact on ships than the wind. And lastly, deviation from the intended course due to external forces is termed as drift angle.
In continuation, the set, drift, and drift angle can be estimated graphically or by mathematical equation. Just take a look at the illustration below. It clearly shows as to how the ship is moved if there are external factors such as the drift. Imagine if the vessel on the course 270 degrees true course and there is a drift of 0 degrees at 5 knots, or should we say a 5 knots drift from your port side. If you are just going to stick to your heading, there is a tendency that you will deviate from your planned route, which is the course made good represented in the image below. It clearly shows as to how external factors affect your vessel's movement. However, with good seamanship and ship handling, we can compensate with this external factor. By utilizing the drift angle, which is the angle formed between the ship's heading and course made good, we can compensate as to how many angles or rudder command we can give to the ship's heading. This is to progress along the intended course line. But take note that the drift angle applied must be the opposite to the set of the current. In addition, factors affecting the drift angle depend on the load condition of the ship, the speed of the ship, the velocity of the wind or rate of the current, and their direction relative to the ship's fore and aft line. Also, the effect to the ship's speed if the wind or current is ahead or astern. But don't worry, these factors can be compensated with good ship handling skills. However, as Sir Alinton mentioned before, this skill takes time to master it. We must pay attention to the techniques and lessons being taught to us in order to achieve a full mastery of this skill. Because in the near future, we will not always be given with calm seas. There are plenty of predicaments that we are going to face. That's why we must be ready in order to compensate and conquer these affecting factors to have a safe navigation.
Other variable or factors affecting ship handling. Human factor. Delay in time between your given order and the execution of the order will affect how you intend to move your ship. This is caused by human factors because the individuals you're ordering may have different responsibilities in the training and ability to perform the job. The orders have to be relayed by the officer to the helmsman, which is a bad practice that should be avoided so that the commanding officer should be able to give his orders directly to the helmsman. Next is sudden breakdown or failure of ship's equipment. The mode of communication failure from the bridge to engine room or vice versa, or to the fore and aft station, language problems between nationalities, and the ship's momentum.
Other contributing factors that affect the ship's turning circle and stopping distance. The first on the list is the ship's deadweight. The larger the ship, the more time it takes for the rudder to take effect. It will also be more difficult to stop. Draft and trim. Shallow water affect the ship's turning ability. The shallower the water, the bigger the turning circle will be. The most efficient trim for a particular ship depends on its design, operational draft, and speed.
Speed. Slow speed requires larger rudder angles to make an effective turn or to increase the rate of turn. Also, larger rudder angles are required to arrest the turn or to check the swing of the ship. The faster the ship, the more water will act on the rudder. Therefore, the vessel is more sensitive to rudder angle movements. Next, under-keel clearance. Shallow water has contributing factor in the rudder's effectivity. Less under-keel clearance means less water to interact with the rudder. The lesser the UKC, the slower the ship's speed would be. Next is the stopping distance. Stopping distance is the distance which a ship will continue to move after action is taken to stop engines until the ship comes to rest. Stopping distance details may be provided for sea speed, harbor speed, etc. It may be provided for loaded and light conditions.